Well, I would have never pegged myself as a perpetrator of mayhem, but I was desperate. I was 20, I was a history student at Bristol University, and I was madly in love. Well, I had a major crush on my academic advisor, who was a history professor called Hugh. Now, Hugh was going away on sabbatical, and I had to find out how he felt, if he felt the same way about me before he left. Well, Hugh taught a history course called America Through British Eyes. I never thought it would come in so useful. And he was always going on about this chap called James Bryce, who died in 1922. And I'd sit in his history lectures and I'd listen to him as he'd say things like, James Bryce was the British ambassador to the United States, and he wrote many tomes. He investigated and looked into American institutions and wrote about them with all the thoroughness and complexity that you would expect from a constitutional lawyer. And his voice would fade away, and I'd imagine myself running my fingers through his soft, sandy hair. Oh, Hugh, how was I going to find out the state of his heart? Well, I was in one of his lectures one day when I had the most marvelous idea. I thought, I know how I can do it. Now, we were coming up to Valentine's Day, and in England, we're really big on anonymous Valentines. So I thought, I'll pour out all my passion for Hugh in a poem. And then I'll write one for all the other history professors in the faculty, in the history faculty, just in case he doesn't feel the same way, and so I can pass the whole thing off as a joke. I thought this was a marvelous idea, absolutely marvelous. And I raced home to start the process. I wrote them and then I typed them up, cut them out and stuck them on index cards. And I found the original ones recently. And here are a few of them. Well, I didn't have any problems writing Hugh's because after all, I thought he was marvelous. And the words just flew off the tips of my finger onto the page. And at the time, I thought this was worthy of a Pulitzer. I will leave you to decide whether it has survived the years or not. Oh, sexy, gorgeous, beloved Hugh. You've no idea how I lust for you. Just one look at that sensuous face and more than my heart begins to race. I stare at you with eyes full of vice, but your only interest is James Bryce. This time I really have been smitten. I only wish that you'd be bitten. Through your seminars I gaze with love. Oh, make him notice, you powers above. But well I know this tale is corny, and I shall stay depressed and horny. Well, I found it a bit difficult writing the other little ditties, because of course I wasn't in love with those professors. But this one is for Dr. Whittam, who was a professor of European history, and he was a lovely teddy bear of a man. And this is what I came up with him, for him. It was, oh, cuddly, beautiful Dr. Whittam, by Cupid's dart I have been smitten. Passion for you makes my heart afire, of your history course I'll never tire. I've thrown you many a smouldering glance when you're spouting of the state of France, but never of passion have you spoken. I'll have you know, my heart is broken. Now, I came to rather a stumbling block in the road because one of the professors was a woman. Her name was Lady Margate. She was married to some chap in the House of Lords. But I did my best to channel male thoughts. And this was the best I could do. Oh, beautiful loved one, Lady M, all grace and beauty from you does stem. At your lectures I am all agog. Do I stand a chance your heart to jog? Yes, they did get progressively worse. Well, on February the 13th, late at night, I snuck over to the beautiful ancient Gothic building where the history faculty was housed, and I slipped them under the doors of the relevant professors, and then I waited. Well, the next day I already had an interview with Hugh. He was my academic advisor. He'd asked to see me to go over some of my essays. I knocked on the door. "Come in," he said. And I came in, I took a seat, and there I saw in the middle of his desk was a valentine. Hugh stared at it. I stared at it. Hugh didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. And then Hugh started talking about my essays. Well, I didn't hear a word. Not a word. I was just staring at that piece of paper in the middle of his desk. And finally, when he was finished, he said, "Something really interesting happened in the history department today. Somebody put a valentine under all of our doors, and it's caused quite a whirlwind in an English kind of way in the department." He said it turns out that Lady Margate had rather a thing for Professor Ingham, the head of the department, and so she thought it was him who'd sent her the valentine. So she sent him one back. And they were last seen cuddling up cosily in a corner of the cafeteria. And then he said, yes, he said, and two other members of the faculty thought it was somebody they had their eye on, and so they approached them, and at least 3 relationships have started because of those valentines. He said, I wouldn't normally tell you, because of course you're not faculty, but we have done things together, we are friends, we are just friends. And he said, of course I wanted you to know, because I'm going away on sabbatical in a few days' time. This will be the last time I see you, and of course I won't be returning until the beginning of the academic year. I wish you well with all your endeavours. Do close the door on your way out. Oh, an ice pick through my heart. I managed to hold it together until I got back to my apartment, flung myself on the bed, and I wept for what seemed like days. But the young human heart is very resilient. And so about 4 months later, I was madly in love with somebody else. I fell in love rather frequently in those days. But one of the lovely things about getting older is that you get to hear the end of stories. And recently I became Facebook friends with somebody who I'd known. She was a friend in my university days, and she still lived in Bristol. And she told me that Hugh had been in love with his own history professor at that time, and indeed, when he came back from sabbatical, the two settled down and they're still together. And I vaguely remembered Hugh's history professor, who was a tweed-wearing, pipe-smoking, very English country gentleman. And I wished them both well. And so when I look back over the many, many, many years to that incident, the major, saved and sanctified part of myself repents causing such mayhem, but the rest of me twinkles at the memory. Thank you.